Welcome to the Go Through Family Podcast. I'm Danny, and this is Hayley. We are a parenting and relationship podcast, and we appreciate you being with us today. So one of the things we're going to be talking about today is kind of my journey and Hayley's journey, what it's like with the kids, with the 7 kids, on how I become a stay-at-home dad and how I come to realize that, and then how it is for Hayley to be working a full-time job and have 7 kids. All the way from when we started getting them, on how that was difficult, and then all the way up until now, to where once I become a stay-at-home dad, how all that changed.
So yeah, this is focusing kind of on our roles and how we got to be there. We live in a day and time where there's a lot more working women, and I see a lot more dads taking kids to the doctor.
At the grocery store.
At the grocery store.
I always smile when I'm at the grocery store and I see a bunch of dads rolling around with kids in the cart.
Yeah.
I'm like, there I am. That's me. What's up?
So anyways, but there is somewhat of a role reversal, and we're not going to go into all of that as to why it has universally seemed to occurred. But
Right.
For us, we're just going to tell you our story and what has happened to us to get us here.
So I guess it'd be a good idea for you to start out, because it was a little different when we first started fostering and when we first adopted. I was still working, at a normal job, at odd and end jobs, and just trying to put things together. And you were also working, and just kind of what it's like when we were getting the new kids coming in, and how it was for you. Like we talked about in an earlier podcast that. When we got the new babies, especially with Kirsten, our last child, who's about to be 3 now, we got her as a newborn, and we got her, and the very next day, Hayley had to go to work. There was no leave for her or anything like that, and so tell us a little bit, I guess, about that story and kind of how it affected you.
So when my biological children were babies, I was part-time. I worked 2 12-hour shifts a week. Loved that. But when I graduated from nurse practitioner school, became a family nurse practitioner, there really was no part-time there. So, I'd only been a family nurse practitioner about a year when we started fostering. And so there was no option of being part-time. So as we got the children, literally we go pick them up from the DHR,
They drop them off.
Or they drop them off. And, we are, making things ends meet that evening, making phone calls, trying to make things work, and then the next day you're getting up and going back to your normal life because you still have a job to go to. In the beginning, Danny was working and I was working. And so it was really hard to put our lives together. We never really felt very organized. And I think as a working mom, we struggle with that anyway, of being organized. And I don't think it's something I had to conclude that everything's not going to be perfect all the time. So there's a lot of sacrifices as a working mom that you just make because you know that your income is needed. And really what the job that I do, there's not that many options of doing it part-time. Right. So anyway, as we got the children, Janelyn was 5 months old. Colton was 8 months old. Jackson was 6 months old. So they were all babies. And then, of course, there was Kirsten, who was the newborn. So in the beginning, I think we talked about with Danelyn and Kirsten, we had people that stepped in and helped us. With Danelyn, we had Tracy and Shannon that took turns taking care of Danelyn for us. And then until the daycare had a place for her. With Kirsten, it was Shannon, and she kept her a couple of days a week. Right. Actually, I think it was 3 or 4 days a week. She would probably remember better than we would because she was there. I've said this before, but if you're going to foster, you need a Shannon because she just...
Sounds like a Shannon. You're going to be on the podcast with Hayley next time. So.
So, you need somebody that can just pick up and say, yeah, that's fine. Just give me that baby and I'll just take them and we'll do life with this baby, and not stress about it, so... Anyway, so they were very helpful. But, as far as at home trying to keep things together and keep everybody on a schedule, honestly, it is a 2-person job, especially with the number of children that we have. So it takes both of us. And I think we realize that when each other is not here, how much we need each other to help.
Especially now. Like when we first started off being parents with Zoe and Molly, our biological daughters, we didn't want to put them in daycare. So at the time, Hayley was an RN and I was working in construction. So what we would do, my schedule was more lenient, I guess. So when Hayley was working, I would be off, and then when she was off, I would go work. And we did that for years. And so we kind of, coming into this, we understood how to do the flip-flop, you know, how to kiss each other as we were walking out the door, and one was walking in, one was walking out, which we still do a lot today. But that's you know, that's just kind of some of the sacrifices we made, even with our younger kids, to be home with them, because we wanted them to. And nothing against, we're not saying it's bad to put your kids in daycare. Heck, our kids are in daycare. Or
right now.
Yeah, right now, some of them.
Yeah.
So that's not what we're saying at all. But at that point in our life, you know, we go through seasons, and at that season in our life, we really wanted to spend time with our children and try to be there for them. So we understood the flip flop a little bit. So as we started getting foster kids, the flip flop, you know, us going back and forth, we understood that.
Right.
But then when Hayley decided, she had already went back to school. And when we started getting them in that season of our life, when she was a nurse practitioner instead of a nurse, her schedule wasn't as lenient. She worked more. She worked different hours than what she used to. And I was just kind of floating out there, not really knowing my place. So that's when it kind of got difficult a little bit for us.
Right. So I think that was kind of where we were at in the beginning, is just the struggle between. And I think all of us as working women, and then as dads, just dads in general, we have this balance that we're all trying to reach. And there's a frustration level on both sides, because you're burning your candle at both ends. And so we talked about, you know, getting someone in to help us with the children, or getting someone in to help with the housework. But that required more money than what we were able to spend.
Right.
And also, I do, you know, I've always told Danny, number one, I'm not a control freak, but I do like my house cleaned a certain way. And I felt like, I told Danny, I said, you can pay someone to come in here every 2 weeks and clean this house. And in 2 days, these kids will destroy it. Right. And so, you know, it's a daily thing of cleaning the house. And I want the kids to learn how to participate in that, and to take care of things themselves. Because if someone's always coming up and picking up after them, then
they don't learn responsibility.
They don't learn responsibility, and it's frustrating on my part.
Right. And I just want to be clear on this. Hayley had mentioned it, but the reason we were looking for someone to come in, because I was working as much as I could work. She was working as much as she could work. And we were trying to, I guess, find common ground at home. And there's some things that are extremely important, and there's some things that just kind of fell by the wayside. And one of the things that's important to Hayley, she likes having a clean house. I believe that most women do. But I like an organized house. It don't have to be super clean. But anyway, so it's not as important to me as it was to her. So I was trying to find...
Constant struggle.
Right. So I was trying to find someone to come in and fill that gap. And like Hayley said, unfortunately, we weren't going to be able to find somebody that met her criteria, and we probably weren't going to be able to afford it anyway. So we started going through this struggle of trying to get these things done, and just not completely exhausting ourselves, which we've been exhausted for a long time.
Yeah.
But trying to keep a house, raise the kids, both of us work. And it just was a huge struggle. And we went through that for how many years?
A long time.
Yeah. So we've had the kids for about 6 years now.
Right.
And you know, that started soon after we got them. So it's probably a good 4 or 5 years that we struggled with that until recently.
Well, and it wasn't just that, you know, you've always had a job, but yours wasn't necessarily full time. It was always, Danny has multiple jobs. And so, but he's not full time at anything. And so
I've always found work to do.
Right. He was more the flexible person.
Right.
And so we finally came to that conclusion where we said, something's going to have to give, because, you know, somebody has got to be the stability here. Somebody's got to be here to make sure the kids get their homework done, and supper gets cooked, and things are cleaned up, because otherwise, you know, when you come home and your house is a wreck and you're trying to, you know, bathe kids, and, you know, you kind of get the worst parts of the day with your children, and then it's the worst part of yourself with your children, which was really, really frustrating for us as a family. So that's when Danny finally concluded that he would be that person.
Right. So yeah, Hayley and I sat down briefly and kind of went through our budget. We made a budget based on her income and the other income we had coming in. And I just realized I don't need to go make money. We can do it on her income. We're not going to have a lot extra, but we're going to do it on her income. We can do it on her income, and I can be home and provide that stability for the family. Hayley was providing the financial stability, and I was going to provide the at home stability for the kids. And so we decided once I sat down, done the budget, and realized, hey, man, we don't really need any income that I'm making. So why am I going out there banging my head against the wall trying to make a dollar when Hayley had that handled? And it wasn't that big a deal. She loves what she does. Even if I did make the kind of money she made, I don't know that she would quit. So she's very happy where she's at and doing what she does. So yeah, we made that decision that I'm going to start staying home more at that time. And so I started staying home more. I laid off I quit trying to get a bunch of extra work. And I just I said the words that I'll be a stay-at-home dad, but it was about a year later that I finally, it just clicked with me. Like I would say it, but I was always still in the back of my mind thinking of, something to do to make money. What can I do to make money? And I'd still go do little odd jobs when I could. I wasn't pushing it as much as I used to, and then finally one day I just thought about it. I kind of sat back and reevaluated my life and what I was doing and, the direction that we were going, making a list of where we wanted to be in a year and 3 years and 5 years. And I just kind of evaluated that and realized that, that me working wasn't necessarily the most important thing I could be doing. So as I made those lists and as I went through that, I realized, what, I'm a stay-at-home dad. Right. Like that's my only, I don't need to go make money. I don't need to really be thinking about that. I just need to take care of the home, take care of the kids, help raise the kids. And it's not, it wasn't all the time. But that, I need to do better about cleaning the house or, I'm not going to do it the way Hayley does. I know, right? I'm still not going to do it the way Hayley does, but just kind of guide everybody. And, I finally realized that was what I was supposed to be doing. It is concentrating on working together with my wife, taking the kids and I guess the biggest thing that changed was I quit looking for extra work, like I said a while ago, but I started taking on the responsibility of getting the kids to their doctor's visits
to
and
school and to daycare, and
getting up in the morning, getting them, all that
grocery
stuff.
Shopping,
doing some grocery shopping and doing all that, just so it didn't fall on her because she had enough on her plate already. And it was amazing what that did for me. It's a super huge struggle for me because I went through about a year of being a stay-at-home dad, but not really submitting to that because. As men, we want to go provide for the family and we want to go be the money earners of the family, and the wife stay home. And like Hayley said before, things had just changed so much that just wasn't our lives. Hayley had already had education. She wanted to go back to school. I didn't go to college. And it just seemed to work that way.
Well, I think for men, we're wired differently, and I will still say I'm a better mom than Danny is.
Right. And I'm definitely a better dad than Hayley is.
Absolutely. So and that was one of the reasons that I changed jobs to be an emergency room nurse practitioner, was because I could work 3, sometimes 4, but mainly 3 days a week so that I could be home more and be in that mom role.
Right.
Because I do think it's important. We as moms are the nurturers. Dads are not natural nurturers.
It's a struggle, guys.
And we are better multitaskers as far as getting things done and things like that.
And there's things that I super suck at when it comes to the kids.
Yes.
Like I don't have a lot of patience. Like when I tell you to do something, don't ask me a question. Go do it. We'll have a conversation once you've done what I asked you to do.
But that's what a dad is supposed to be. That's what dads do. And sometimes, kids want to negotiate with me so much. I'm like, you know what? Just go talk to your dad about it because
she knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, he's going to bring down the hammer.
And this may not be, the ideal lifestyle for a lot of people. But it's what's working for us now.
What's what we at the point in time that we were at. we really felt like we had no choice, especially if we were going to go forward and adopt all of our children. And once those children are yours, they're your responsibility.
Right.
And so, this is not something that we could take lightly. So it wasn't like we just had 2 children and we could, eat ramen noodles a couple of days a week. This is like, okay, we've got a lot of people we've got to feed and clothe. And so we had to make some decisions based on that.
And somebody had to be home.
And somebody has to be the stability. So,
and the money had to be made then. Like, it wasn't that, hey, I can go start making it in a year. I didn't have a year. It had to be made then, and she was already doing that.
Right.
But it was a huge struggle for me to accept that role as a stay-at-home dad, because I did want to provide and be the provider. But when I finally accepted that role and began to understand that I was providing as a stay-at-home dad, that I could still do that. It wasn't financial. And one thing I want to say about financial and success is that success is relative. So, to some people, a billionaire is successful, a millionaire is successful. The billionaire is more successful than a millionaire based on financial, but the guy and the family making $30,000 a year or $20,000 a year, and they've got their life in balance, and they're serving the Lord, and they're taking care of their kids, and they're raising their kids to be good adults. They're successful. Man, all success is relative. It's relative to what you call success. And there's so many people, like, money is not success. Mm-hmm. And for so many years, it's always been that money makes you successful, and that's not the truth.
Right.
The truth is following after the Lord, doing what the Lord's called you to do, and taking care of your family, your wife, yourself if you're single. That's what success is.
Absolutely.
So anyway, when I let that go, I learned that I could be a success being a stay-at-home dad, raising my kids to be the adults that I want them to be. So that freed me up emotionally, I guess, so much when I just kind of let that go, that I had to work and that I had to be the financial support from my family. When I realized I didn't have to do that, it freed me up so much to be a better dad, to be a better husband, to
Right. I mean, it definitely released us from a lot of tension and stress, because before, it was more like I felt like I was working all the time, and I was coming home and trying to make up for everything that wasn't done during the day. I mean, it's like having a bunch of tornadoes live at home while you're at work all day, and you come home and you're trying to clean up. And not that Danny left it terrible, but there are some things that men just don't notice, and it's not important.
And I thought I was being useful, trying to go out and earn money. Like, I thought, hey, I'm going to go bang the bushes today, or go do this or do that, and make a little bit of money. And it just didn't really amount to anything. Mm-hmm. It was more it was more valuable. There was more value in me being at home, so she didn't have to worry about those things than me going off trying to make a dollar.
As a working mom, there are some things that I had to let go of as well. So I felt like I was a really good stay-at-home mom. I really loved being at home with my kids when I've been at home with them. I've always worked, but when I worked part-time, I absolutely loved every moment that I spent with my children. So I've had to let go of being in control of everything that happens with me and my kids, to my children, with my children. I cannot spend every spare moment with them. I can't go to every lunch. I can't go to every party. And so I had to kind of grieve that a little bit and let it go and just say, it's okay to not be there for everything. And Danny makes up for that a good bit. And there's been a couple of times where the kids have come home and said, everybody else's family was there and y'all weren't, and I felt a little bad about that. But there were times when my family was busy too, and they couldn't come to everything that I did. And I think that just helps them to understand, we're busy and we've got a lot going on. So I had to let go of having a perfect house all the time. Of course, 7 kids makes you
let go of
a lot of that. But and I like things to be cleaned up, and I don't like to go to bed and there'll be stuff that's messed up. But there are some things that I've let go of that I'm okay with. My bed is not made every day, and I'm sure people would have something to say about that. But
of course, there's a great book out there by a Navy SEAL is Make Your Bed.
Yeah.
It's a very short read.
Start with making your bed. Yes.
Yeah. Go read it. It's a good book.
It is, I'm not saying that you shouldn't make your bed. I'm just saying there are some things that I don't always do, but
I'm very proud of her for letting go of some of this stuff.
But there are some things too that I do, and I could make myself late to work every day getting every little thing done. So it's sacrifice on both of our parts
Right.
to make our family work.
Right, and like I said before, it's a season, and I think that's a very important part that we need to understand. And for parents out there with kids, just know, man, if you're going through a hard time or if you're having to make hard decisions, it's just for a season. There's one there's one constant in life, and that constant's change. Things are always going to be changing.
Right.
So don't get down on things are hard right now. Sometimes seasons are hard. Sometimes seasons are good and fun. Sometimes there are seasons where you don't have two nickels to rub together, and there's sometimes seasons where you have a little bit more. But just understand that it's a season, and you'll get through it. Rely on the Lord, and be on your knees. Be grateful. We just had a podcast around Thanksgiving talking about being grateful. Be grateful and thankful for what you do have. Love on your kids, man. That's one thing I've learned about being home more is just trying to raise them by loving on them, to affirm them, and instead of telling them don't do this, I try to tell them do this for this reason.
And thank you for making good decisions.
Yeah, and thank you for making good decisions and allowing them to make some decisions sometimes. But anyway, I kind of got off on a tangent there. But yeah, just understand wherever you're at is for a season, and just kind of plan your life where you want to go and how you want your life to be, and work that plan. And sometimes in that plan, it's dad being home and mom being at work, and
there's some people that don't have the option of either one being home. And for those people, I feel you. There's been times in our life, of course, there's been a time in our life when we've been through the same thing,
Right.
and it's hard, and you are burning the candle at both ends, and
it sucks.
there's some things you've got to let go of, and there's things that you've got to be grateful for as well, and that is the fact that your kids, have you that loves them very much. They
Right.
know that. And you be there for them when you can, and you take off of work when you can to be at their different events.
Right. Kids are very resilient, and they're
are.
very forgiving. And if you can, one of the things that I've learned from reading some of these books that I've known, but is when be present in the present. So when you're at home with your kids, man, be home with your kids. Quit thinking about work. Quit thinking about tomorrow. Quit thinking about
your phone.
Get off your daggum phone, man, because you ain't got your kids for long. They're not here for long,
Right.
and there's a lot of stuff that they'll forgive you for if you just spend time with them. When you have the time to spend with them, man. Love on them, go throw ball with them, look at them in the eyes when they're talking.
Have a conversation with them.
Right, have a conversation with them, and
Read to them.
yeah, read to them, pray with them, man. Get down on your knees together and pray with them, guide them, teach them. You don't have to be there for everything, but when you are there, be there. Be
Yes.
present.
Be present.
Get off your phone. Quit thinking about the things that you have to do. Be present.
Right. There's also moms and dads out there where moms don't work, but they stay at home with their kids and they homeschool their kids.
Right.
And that's another struggle. And we've also been through homeschooling our kids, and so that becomes a job in of itself. So again, you've got a mom and a dad that's both working.
Yeah, it's a huge job.
And
to
then
homeschool
dads
kids.
really do need to step in. And when the dad gets home from work, give the mom a break, because as much as you love your children, it's tedious sometimes, and you fought and argued with them all day about trying to teach them and trying to help them to understand, and they want to butt heads with you. So sometimes the dads can come home and just give that mom a break,
Right.
and help with the house, because they obviously can't do everything during that day. So I have a lot of friends who homeschool. We've homeschooled our two oldest children for a short period of time, and so we have an understanding of that world as well.
Yeah. There's one thing I want to elaborate on that Hayley was saying, and this is directly to you men, is, the Bible says that we should love our wives as Christ loved the church, giving ourselves to her and for her. And a lot of men take that as, I would die for my wife. Well, that's the easy part, dying for your wife or dying for your family. The hard part is, and what that scripture is talking about is, not only did Christ die for us, but Christ was a servant. He served, and he washed the disciples' feet. He did the things that nobody else would do. And I want to encourage you men that, I know a lot of times when you guys get home from work, I was there, I used to do it. Your wife, a lot of times your wife's work too. Men, serve her, be there for her, Sweep the daggum floor. Help her out in the kitchen. That's going to help your relationship grow. It's going to help things.
There's nothing more attractive than a man that does dishes.
Yeah, you want to be a sexy man? Yeah, go wash some dishes. Not in your underwear. You don't want to be washing dishes like you want her to wash dishes. You want to wash dishes like...
This needs to be child appropriate, Danny.
It is child appropriate. My Superman underwear are child appropriate. They're child approved.
I think you should cut that.
I don't know. That's good. That's good stuff. That's real stuff. But yeah, man. On the serious side, serve your wives. Don't just be willing to die for her. Be willing to live for her. Be willing to serve her. Be willing to lift her up with kind words and being willing and able to help her in the things that she needs help with.
And on the flip side of that, women, respect your husbands. Men need to be shown respect. Whether you think they deserve it or not, men have to be shown respect. Otherwise, your relationship won't work. That's what relationships are based on, and the Bible's very clear about it. Women need love and men need respect. Now, a lot of times we reverse that, but respect is very important. So when you respect your husband, even if he's not always respectful, if you respect him, and I'm not talking about abusive situations or anything extreme, I'm talking about in normal everyday situations, if you will respect your husband, most of the time he'll respond to that. And sometimes respecting means lowering your expectations. In other words, you can't expect someone else to walk in your shoes and do exactly what you would do. And that's one thing that I've learned through our relationship is I can't say, well, this is what I think Danny should do today, or this is what I expect him to get done today. No, that's no way to have a relationship, and it's not going to work, because men don't do well when you set up expectations and say, I want you to do this, 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 and this. That does not work in a relationship with a man and a woman, and it doesn't work if he does that to you as well. Now, do you say, hey, I want to remind you, here's a list? Yes, absolutely. And I try not to be a nag, and I always tell Danny, and hey, I don't want to nag you about this, but I really need this done, and I can't do it. But lower your expectations and allow him to do things his way sometimes. Now, if it doesn't work and you come home and there's Pop-Tarts all over the floor,
I can sweep them up.
Then you say, I don't think that's the best idea. But overall, relationships work better, not when you don't disagree, but when you are respectful to each other. So especially as a wife to a husband.
Yep, that's exactly right. Comment below on one thing that you can do for your husband or wife this week to either be more respectful towards him, or something that you can do for her to lift her up. Thanks, guys.